The court said, the government may call its next witness.
Ms. Murray said, "Thank you, Your Honor." The government calls Jamie Wilson.
Jamie Wilson, called as a witness by the government, having been duly sworn, testified as follows.
The court said, please state your name and spell it.
The witness said, Jamie Wilson, Jamie. Wilson is Wilson.
The court said, you may inquire.
Ms. Murray said, "Thank you, Your Honor."
Direct examination. By Ms. Murray.
Good afternoon, Ms. Wilson.
Good afternoon.
Where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Bank of Princeton.
What is your title?
I am the BSA officer for the bank.
And what does BSA stand for?
BSA stands for the Bank Secrecy Act.
When did you become a BSA officer?
4 years ago.
What are your duties and responsibilities as a BSA officer?
My duties are to protect the financial institution and our financial industry from money laundering, terrorist financing, tax evasion.
Can you describe for the jury how, if at all, you monitor for your issues in the course of your BSA duties?
Yes. We have different ways of monitoring. We have a system that alerts us when people's activity goes outside of what you would consider normal for a personal account or a business account. We have ways of contacting law enforcement, can contact us through 314 as. We have 314 BS, which allows us to talk to other financial constitutions. We have different monthly and weekly reports where we monitor wires, monetary instruments. Any activity that comes in and out of a bank, we monitor it.
And you mentioned the 314B program. Can you explain in a bit more detail what that entails?
So 314B program is not all financial institutions are involved in it, but if you sign up, it allows you to talk to another bank about customers that you both have the same customer. So if I was a customer of financial institution A, and financial institution B also, I was a customer of that institution. We could talk about the activity going through our accounts in reference to money laundering and possible terrorist financing.
And how, if at all, does the 314B information sharing system assist you in doing your BSA monitoring?
That helps us put the bigger picture together. So if we're unsure where activity is coming from or the original source or where it is going to, it allows us the capability of finding out where that money originated from. If it was coming into ours or where it was going, and what it was used for if it goes somewhere else.
Ms. Wilson, are you familiar with the term qualifile?
Yes.
What is qualifile?
Qualifile is a report run on every individual in business that comes to a bank to open an account. And it's a check systems report that every single bank runs. And it allows you to see if somebody has a charge off at another institution. So if they went in the negative at another bank, it would show us that they possibly owe that financial institution funds.
Are you familiar with the phrase OFAC?
Yes.
What does that stand for?
OFAC is the Office of Foreign Asset Control. And OFAC sends out multiple different types of lists that some people may be blocked or sanctioned. And you cannot transact with those individuals or businesses.
How, if at all, are the OFAC list relevant to your duties and responsibilities as a BSA officer?
If somebody hits the OFAC list, then we need to call OFAC, which is part of the U.S. Treasury, and either deny a transaction or potentially put it into a separate account and hold those funds.
Can you describe the average Bank of Princeton customer profile?
Yeah. The average Bank of Princeton can be anybody from what I would consider a blue-collar customer. So somebody possibly a mechanic or a military person to real estate agents or doctor's offices.
And how many branches are there of Bank of Princeton?
We have 26 branches.
Geographically speaking, where in the U.S. are those branches located?
They're located mostly in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And just recently a couple in the outskirts of New York, not within a city, but mostly New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Ms. Wilson, did there come a time when you conducted a BSA review of an account held in the name of Lamp Capital?
Yes.
Approximately when was that?
Around September of 2020.
What, if anything, do you recall about that customer?
That customer came to us from a board member who met with an advisor and a financial advisor and a lawyer. And they were introduced together to bring money to our financial institution because they considered us more of a family bank still over the larger institutions.
Do you recall the name of that advisor who referred the account?
I believe the advisor Stephen Law Andy was the lawyer. And then Hatham Khalid was the advisor who brought the funds to us.
Who, if anyone, did the advisor say that he was working with in bringing the account to Bank of Princeton?
Mr. Barkan said, objection, hearsay.
The court said, sustained.
Do you recall whether there were any other individuals referenced in Lamp Capital?
When Lamp Capital was open, the signer on the account was another lawyer. Once we researched that name. Daniel Podhaski.
Ms. Wilson, when an account is open at Bank of Princeton, what information, if any, does the bank request of the potential customer?
We request, when it's a business account, we need 2 forms of business identification. Usually it's an SS4 which is given from the IRS that has their EIN number. And a EIN number is kind of like a person's social security number for a business. And then the other document would be their certificate of formation that's usually filed with the state. And all the IDs for the signers on the account.
And what, if anything, do you do with that information once you collect it?
We review it to make sure that it is a legitimate document so that they actually did file with the IRS. They did file with the different states. We review that the signers match the business documents that are being opened. And that even the signers' IDs are legitimate.
Did you conduct a BSA review of the Lamp Capital account?
Yes.
What, if anything, do you recall about that review?
The beneficial owners, which we also do, is the ultimate owner of the business. We reviewed those documents. The opening documents, which the signer on the account wasn't the owner of the business. So that was a bit of a red flag to us. And they happen to be a lawyer, not the actual signers. And the signers and owners of the business on the UBO form, which is the ultimate beneficial ownership form. They were an NRA, which is a non-resident alien, so not a U.S. citizen. Which doesn't make it bad. It just makes it a little higher risk for us as the bank.
I want to discuss some of the characteristics of the Lamp Capital account based on your review. Do you recall the approximate dollar amount of that account?
Yes. When they opened it, they brought in around $10 million.
How, if at all, did that compare to the dollar amount in other Bank of Princeton customer accounts that you reviewed?
Mr. Barkan said, objection, relevance.
Ms. Murray said, it goes to the risk rating that Ms. Wilson was just speaking about.
The court said, I'll allow the answer.
Without having a loan at the institution. I've never seen that kind of money brought in to open an account before. It was higher than our average clientele.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, there's a stipulation between the parties that I believe is in evidence. I'm going to confirm that. This is Government Exhibit Stip 14. It's a stipulation regarding bank records. And pursuant to this stipulation, at this time the government offers Government Exhibits GX, BOP 16, BOP 7, BOP 1, BOP 2, BOP 3, and BOP 4.
The court said, any objection?
Mr. Barkan said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, they are admitted.
Government's exhibits BOP 16, BOP 7, BOP 1, BOP 2, BOP 3, and BOP 4 received in evidence by Ms. Murray.
Ms. Loftus, if we could please publish Government Exhibit BOP 16. Ms. Wilson, Bank of Princeton. Is that institution insured by any governing body?
The FDIC.
Can you explain what the FDIC is?
FDIC is the Federal Depository Institution. So they back our institution financially to cover the funds that are within our institution. And they also examine our bank to make sure we're in compliance at least every 18 months.
Ms. Loftus, we now have this up, if you could just flip through a few of the pages. Ms. Wilson. Generally speaking, do you recognize Government Exhibit BOP 16?
Yes, this is the account agreement, the opening documents.
If we could go to the first page, Ms. Loftus. For what account?
This is for Lamp Capital.
If we could zoom in all the way across the page, the top portion, please. Looking at the top right. Ms. Wilson, what is the date of this account agreement for Lamp Capital?
September 10th, 2020.
And over on the left a little bit below, what's the name of the signer?
Daniel Podhaski.
And under that there's the name Lamp Capital again. What is the text that's listed in the box below Lamp Capital?
The newly established company.
Ms. Loftus, if we could go to page 10, please. What is this document, Ms. Wilson?
This is the beneficial ownership document that shows that the ultimate beneficial owners of the business.
Who, if anyone, completes this document? Who provides the information reflected in this document?
The person opening the account.
Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom in please on the top portion through to the first table. Ms. Wilson. What's the name of the person opening this account?
Daniel Podhaski.
And in B, the legal entity for this account?
Lamp Capital.
Looking at section C, what is the name listed as the ultimate beneficial owner of Lamp Capital?
Changwa.
Can you spell that?
Hyang, last name is Guo.
Ms. Loftus, if we could zoom in. What is the address associated with Changhua on this document?
It's 781 or 761, Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10002.
What type of passport does this individual hold according to this document?
A Hong Kong passport.
Ms. Loftus, can we go to page 15, please? Ms. Wilson, what type of document is this?
This is their limited liability company agreement, so it's a business document.
Why, if at all, does the Bank of Princeton collect business documents in the course of account openings?
To validate the business itself that it was formed. And within the businesses usually it tells you what type of business it is, who the signers of the business are.
What, if anything, do you look for in the course of your BSA review in collecting corporate documents like this?
When we collect corporate documents, we like to see when they were actually incorporated. Who the signers are, what type of business they are, anyone related to the business, where they're located. Were they actually registered of the business?
If we could focus on the top portion here, Ms. Loftus. What is the date based on this limited liability company agreement that Lamp Capital was created?
The 8th day of September 2020.
And what entity is listed as the sole member of that company?
Infinity Treasury Management Incorporated.
Ms. Loftus, if we could just briefly go back to page 1, please. Ms. Wilson. What was the date that Daniel Podhaski applied to open this bank account in the name of Lamp Capital?
September 10th, 2020.
Ms. Loftus, let's go back to page 19, please, just the bottom of that corporate document. Ms. Wilson. Who signed the limited liability company agreement on behalf of Infinity Treasury Management?
Daniel Podhaski.
Ms. Loftus, can we go to page 33 now, please? What is this, Ms. Wilson?
That's the Qualifile report, the check systems report.
Can you describe what information is reflected on a Qualifile response?
So this is a report that's run on every business or individual opening an account. And that's run by every single bank. So when we look at this, it's telling us. Kind of gives you a suggestion whether to open or deny the account. And if somebody had recently opened accounts at other institutions or had charge-offs at other institutions, we would be able to see it here.
Can we go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus? And if you could focus in on inquiry details down to the end of details too. If you could just explain a little bit of what information is on this report, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah. So that's where you can see where it says August 30th, 2020. Daniel Podhasky had also gone to Next Bank to inquire and open an account. So he got through the process of opening the account with their institution, whether they actually opened it or not. They probably did if they ran him. And then again you have Santander Bank on September 15th, 2020. He also went to that institution to inquire and open an account.
We can take that down, Ms. Loftus. Thank you. Were any LAMP Capital accounts opened at Bank of Princeton?
Yes.
Did there come a time when the LAMP Capital signer opened another account at Bank of Princeton?
Yes.
What was the name on that account?
Greenwich Land.
Approximately when was that Greenwich Land account opened?
That was also September of 2020.
Ms. Loftus, if we could please publish what's in evidence as Government Exhibit BOP 7. Ms. Wilson. What is this document?
That's the opening documents, the account agreement.
If we could focus on the top portion all the way across the top, please, Ms. Loftus. What is the date of this account opening document?
September 23rd, 2020.
And looking at the right, the account title and the individual associated with this account?
Greenwich Land, LLC, and Daniel Podhasky.
And then looking over on the left under owner/signer information. What is listed as the occupation for Daniel Podhasky?
Attorney.
If we could go to page 3, please, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Wilson, again, what is this type of document?
That's the ultimate beneficial ownership document.
If we could focus on the top portion, Ms. Loftus. In the table in item C, Ms. Wilson. Who is listed here as the beneficial owner of the Greenwich Land?
Hing Chi-ngok.
All right. Ms. Loftus, if we could go to page 8, please. What type of record is this, Ms. Wilson?
That's the resolution for the business. And anybody opening the account are going to have authority over the account signs this.
Zoom out of that, Ms. Loftus, and go to the next page, the next page, and the next page. If we could focus on the top portion. On what date was this limited liability company established?
This was signed September 22nd, 2020.
And who signed on behalf of the company?
Daniel Podhasky.
So that's September 22nd, 2020. Ms. Loftus, can we go back to page 1, please? What was the date that Daniel Podhasky applied for the Greenwich Land Bank account at Bank of Princeton?
September 23rd, 2020.
Let's go to page 17, please, Ms. Loftus. Ms. Wilson. Is this the quali-file response for the Greenwich Land account?
Yes.
And going to the next page, page 18, if we could zoom in on the text here. How many inquiries were there that were relevant to the Greenwich Land Bank account?
4.
And can you read the dates and the banks that were associated with those inquiries?
Next Bank, Santander Bank, Signature Bank, and the Bank of Princeton.
Can you explain why, if at all, Bank of Princeton would appear on its own quali-file response?
They ran his name through quali-file on September 16th also, and then was running it again on September 23rd.
Ms. Loftus, can we go to page 23, please? What is this, Ms. Wilson?
That's a new account checklist that the branches fill out for the businesses to make sure that we have everything. As far as BSA goes and legal-wise goes, so we have the proper documents for businesses and individuals.
If we can go to the next page, please, Ms. Loftus. Looking about halfway down the page in bold, there's an if other field, if we could zoom in on that. Ms. Wilson. What information does this form reflect about the type of business that Greenwich Land was?
Capital management.
All right. Ms. Loftus, we can take that down. Ms. Wilson, in the course of your duties as a BSA officer, did you monitor the LAMP Capital and the Greenwich Land accounts after they were opened?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you observe about the activity in those accounts?
The activity coming in both accounts were funded with a higher than normal amount of money than I've seen at the Bank of Princeton in my 11 years there. And then the money that started going out of the accounts were not really in line with what we thought a capital management or a real estate business should. Or wasn't in line of what I've seen or would be typical for that type of business.
What type of activity did you observe that in your opinion wasn't in line with typical activity?
The funds going out, there were 2 large checks to the beneficial owners. One from each of the businesses to the beneficial owners of those businesses. They went to car dealerships, wineries. A yacht, not in line with just that business.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, pursuant to the stipulation GX Stip 14, I also offer Government Exhibit GX, BOP 12 and GX, BOP 10.
The court said, "No objection."
Mr. Barkan said, "No objection, Your Honor."
The court said, "They are admitted."
Government's exhibits BOP 12 and BOP 10 received in evidence. By Ms. Murray.
Ms. Loftus, if we can please publish GX, BOP 12. Ms. Wilson, while we're pulling that up. Did you observe any OFAC hits in the Greenwich Land or the Lamp Capital accounts?
No OFAC matches.
Ms. Wilson, what is this?
That's a bank statement.
Looking at the top, for what account is the bank statement?
For Lamp Capital, LLC.
And the statement ending date on the top right?
10/30/020.
If we could focus on the summary of accounts down to the bottom of the page, please, Ms. Loftus. Looking at the summary of accounts, Ms. Wilson. What was the ending balance for this pay period for this Lamp Capital statement?
$4,230,400.
And I want to look at a view of the different transactions that are reflected here. Under other credits, the second entry there, what is the date of that incoming wire?
October 15, 2020.
From a bank account held in the name of what entity?
Savio Law, LLC.
And the amount of that incoming wire into the Lamp Capital account?
$5 million.
And if we could go to page 3 please, Ms. Loftus. Focus in on the content on the top. Looking at the third item here, Ms. Loftus, what is the date of that outgoing wire?
October 29, 2020.
Where does it go?
Moran Yacht Management Incorporated.
What is the dollar amount of that outgoing wire from the Lamp Capital account?
$272,525.
Ms. Loftus, we can take that down, and let's put up Government Exhibit BOP 10, please. What is this? Ms. Wilson?
It's another bank statement.
For what account?
Greenwich Land.
And what is the statement sending date?
October 30, 2020.
Again, if we could focus in here on the top portion from summary of accounts through to the bottom. What was the ending balance in the Greenwich Land account on October 30, 2020?
Almost $10 million.
And looking at the incoming wires listed here, if we could just take them one at a time. The 3 of those incoming wires, the date, where it came from, and the dollar amount?
Yep, October 15, 2020, there's an incoming wire from Savio Law, LLC for $5 million. On October 21, 2020. There's an incoming wire from ACA Capital Group, Ltd. for $999,893.22, and on October 23, 2020. Another incoming wire from ACA Capital Group for almost $4 million.
And then if we could look at the bottom of this portion, other debits. The second to the last debit reflected there, if you could read that that's October 26th.
An outgoing wire to Sherry Lehman, Inc. for $32,220.
Do you know what type of company or business Sherry Lehman, Inc. is?
I don't remember exactly what their business was.
If we could take that down, Ms. Loftus, and show the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit BOP 40. Ms. Wilson, do you recognize this?
That's an email.
If we could scroll through the pages, Ms. Loftus. Have you seen this email before, Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Did you receive this email?
Yes.
Ms. Murray said, Your Honor, the government offers Government Exhibit BOP 40.
Mr. Barkan said, no objection, Your Honor.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit BOP 40 received in evidence.
Ms. Murray said, and we can publish that. Starting at the top, and then we'll kind of work our way through the chain, Ms. Wilson. What is the date of the top portion of this email chain?
December 18, 2020.
And this is an email from you to whom?
From me to my assistant BSA officer.
What is the subject of the full email chain here?
Incoming wires for Greenwich Land.
And there's an attachment to this email. What is the title of that attachment?
Loan Agreement ACA vs. Greenwich, need to sign PDF.
Let's go to page 3, Ms. Loftus. Focusing on the email that begins about a third of the way down of the page, who is Miriam Cologne?
She was the branch manager for our New Brunswick office.
What is the date of this outgoing email from Miriam Cologne?
November 19, 2020.
Who is it sent to?
Haytham Khalid and Daniel Podhaski.
What's the domain name of the email address for Haytham Khalid?
Crane Advisory Group.
Do you know what Crane Advisory Group is?
That was the investment advisory firm that he worked for.
And what about the email domain for Daniel Podhaski?
It was Lamp Capital.
So if you could read just the first 2 lines of this email from Miriam Cologne. Actually the first 3 lines of the email.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hope your day is going well. My compliance department is conducting a retrospective review of this payment.
Now there's text that's in black and there's text that's in red. Do you see that?
Yes.
If we could zoom out, Ms. Loftus, and go up just a few pages, and look at the bottom of this first page. If we could zoom in, Ms. Loftus. Who is this email from?
That's from Daniel Podhaski.
On what date?
On December 2, 2020.
Who does he send it to?
To Miriam Cologne, the branch manager, and copied Haytham Khalid.
And the content of this email reads, Hi, Miriam. I have put the requested information below in red. And the requested supporting documentation is attached. Do you see that?
Yes.
Let's go back to page 3, please, Ms. Loftus. I'd to zoom in on that email. Ms. Wilson. What information was Bank of Princeton requesting from Lamp Capital in item 1 here?
We were trying to find out ACA Capital Group's business activities, their contact information, their physical address, phone number, so who ACA Capital was and more information about that business.
Why, if at all, were you requesting additional information about that business?
Because they had sent a high amount of funds into the Bank of Princeton to a new client of ours.
And looking at item 2 here, the request from Miriam Cologne is: Please provide organization structure chart for ACA Capital Group Limited, and indicate beneficial owners. What was the response from Lamp Capital to that request?
They were not in possession of that information.
Looking at item 3 where the Bank of Princeton requests the industry that Greenwich Land is operating. And additional identifying details. Can you read the text in red, which is the response from Greenwich Land?
Greenwich Land is a real estate holding company incorporated for the purpose of owning and managing real estate assets. The physical address is 667 Madison Avenue, 5th floor, New York, New York, 10065. It's a privately owned entity that is not marketing to the public, and therefore does not currently have a website. The phone number is 917-225-8178. The email address is danielp@lampcapital.org. Greenwich Land's beneficial owner is Hing Chi Ngok.
And then in item 4, which requests the relationship between ACA Capital Group and the beneficiary Greenwich Land LLC, what is the response from the customer there?
ACA is a lender and Greenwich Land is the borrower.
If we can zoom out, Ms. Loftus, and focus on the response for 5 into the next page. So detail purpose down through the end. Ms. Wilson, Miriam Colognes requests the purpose of the following payments. On October 20, 2020, a payment in the amount of $999,913.22. Is that the payment we just looked at that was reflected in the account statement?
Yes.
And the second payment that Miriam Colognes is requesting information for, what payment is that?
On October 22, 2020, in the amount of $3,999,935. That was another payment from ACA that we just saw on the statement.
And looking then further down the email, the bank requests documentation. What response does Greenwich Land give in response to that request?
Both transactions are part of a loan agreement. Please see attached loan agreement.
Now, the bank requests the information within 14 days. Do you see that?
Yes.
Ms. Loftus, let's look again at what the date was of the request was of Ms. Colognes.
November 19, 2020.
And we can zoom out and just scroll up the chain. Stop there for a moment so we can see this email. On November 24, 2020. There's an outgoing email from Miriam Colognes. What does that email say?
Following up. Hope your day is going well. Please see email sent on November 18th. I need to respond to my compliance department on this. Can you please provide information requested?
And we can zoom out, Ms. Loftus, and go up again. On what date does Daniel Podhasky respond to Miriam Colognes?
On the 24th he said, "Thanks for following up. We'll get back shortly."
And then what happens on December 1, 2020?
She requested a follow-up again.
And scroll up please, Ms. Loftus. And then looking here at the bottom of page 1. On what date does Daniel Podhasky provide the requested information?
December 2nd.
If we could look at the top of this page please, Ms. Loftus. In particular the email that you write Ms. Wilson. What do you write in your email here?
This is for Greenwich Land and the relationship between ACA Capital. These are the answers we received from the customer. I wanted to follow up on the information. We could go over it on Monday when I got back with my assistant.
We can zoom out, and let's look at the attachment to this email, Ms. Loftus. It's a few pages down. If we could zoom in on the top portion here. Ms. Wilson. Is this a document that Daniel Podhasky provided to the bank in response to its inquiry?
Yes.
What is the title of this document?
Loan agreement.
What is the date of the agreement?
October 16, 2020.
And who are the parties, looking first at Party 1?
ACA Capital Group and Greenwich Land, LLC.
Let's zoom out, please, Ms. Loftus. And focus on the loan, which is item 2 here. Ms. Wilson. In the first sentence of this paragraph, what is the loan amount for this loan agreement?
$5 million.
We can zoom out again, Ms. Loftus. Can we scroll down, please? Is there one more page or is that the end? We can zoom in on the signature lines, please. What entity is listed as signing on behalf of ACA Capital Group Limited?
Celestial Tide Limited.
And how is Celestial Tide Limited described?
The director of ACA Capital Group Limited.
All right. Ms. Loftus, we can take that down. Ms. Wilson. Did there come a time when a company called G Club Operations applied to open an account at Bank of Princeton?
Yes.
Approximately when was that?
That was at the end of September, beginning of October.
Of what year?
2020.
How, if at all, did you become aware of that account application?
They were also brought to us from the same investment advisor.
Did you conduct a BSA review of that account?
Yes.
What, if anything, do you recall about the G Club account opening materials?
The opening documents, they had formed them in Puerto Rico. The business formation was in Puerto Rico. And they had an address listed in Puerto Rico and in New York. They had their SS4. But none of the signers that were going to be on the business account were on the business formation documents. And the beneficial open was a non-resident alien.
You said SS4. What does that refer to?
SS4 is their EIN number. So it's a letter from the IRS assigning an EIN number to the business. Such as you get your social security number. That's their sole identifier.
Ms. Loftus, can we please publish Government Exhibit BOP1? Ms. Wilson. Is this the account agreement for that account you just mentioned, G Club Operations?
Yes.
Can we focus on the top portion, Ms. Loftus, on the left side? What is the full name of the institution for this account?
G Club Operations, LLC.
And what is the address listed for G Club Operations, LLC?
590, Madison Avenue, 21st floor, New York, New York, 10022.
Now there's a handwritten annotation under that address. Do you see that?
Yes.
What does it say?
Correct address.
Ms. Loftus, if we can please pull up alongside this what's in evidence as Government Exhibit SW, 2009. If we could zoom in on the top portion from through to the address that's listed there as sender. Ms. Wilson. Do you see to whom this email on the right side was sent?
HathamK@craneadvisorygroup.com.
To whom is it addressed?
To Yvette Wang.
And looking on the right there, there's a field called Center. Do you see that?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Sure. There's transaction for the value. There are a few fields under transaction details. What is listed under Center?
New York, New York, City, 590, Madison Avenue, 590, Madison Avenue, New York City 10022.
And 2 lines down, what is the authorization date associated with that transaction?
October 14, 2020.
Keeping that up, Ms. Loftus. Looking on the left at the Bank of Princeton account agreement for G Club Operations. If we could focus on the owner/signer information there. Who is listed as the owner/signer of this account?
Yvette Wang.
And the address that we just went over on the top here that's listed. Is that the same address that's listed on the document on the right?
Yes.
If we could zoom out of that, Ms. Loftus, and we'll just focus again on BOP1. We can take down SW, 2009. Let's go to page 3, please, focus on the top portion. Actually, all the way down to the bottom of the text here. This is on the bottom right. Ms. Wilson, what is the date the account was opened?
October 30, 2020.
On the top left, what is the name of the second signer on this account?
Alex Hadjikaralambis.
And what is Alex Hadjikaralambis' occupation listed as here?
Comptroller.
Let's go to page 8, please, Ms. Loftus. Again, Ms. Wilson, what type of document is this?
That's the Limited Liability Company Authorization Resolution.
And looking here, for what company?
For G Club Operations.
And what is the address listed for G Club Operations on this corporate document?
590, Madison Avenue, 21st floor, New York, New York, 10022.
And do you see the 2 signers here on the account?
Yvette Wang and Alex H.
Are those the same signers who were listed above in the account opening documentation?
Yes.
Let's go to page 13, please. If we could focus, Ms. Loftus, on that portion down to the bottom. What is the name of this scanned passport?
Yanping Wang.
And what is the issuing country of this passport?
China.
And then, if we could focus on the handwritten information on the bottom here, Ms. Loftus. What does that say, Ms. Wilson?
Second form of ID, Occupation Manager.
Let's go to the next page, page 14. What is this an image of, Ms. Wilson?
A credit card.
Why, if at all? Would Bank of Princeton collect a scan of a credit card in connection with an account opening?
That can be used as a second form of ID for an individual.
And what is the individual's name listed on this credit card?
Golden Spring, New York. And it's Yenping Wang.
Let's go to page 21, please. Again, Ms. Wilson. Is this the beneficial owner certification for the G Club operations account?
Yes.
And looking through to the table, the person opening the account listed as Alex H., correct?
Correct.
And then the name and address of the legal entity is the same as we've been looking at in the account opening documentation?
Yes.
What is the name of the ultimate beneficial owner of G Clubs according to this document?
He, Howren.
Can you spell that?
H.E., last name is H.R.N.
And looking at the address field, can you read that address?
79, East Works Drive, Coughton, Hackett, UK.
At the bottom, if we could focus on the portion through to the date. What date was this form submitted?
October 29, 2020.
And this is a corporate document for G Clubs that was provided to Bank of Princeton, is that correct?
Yes, this is a form the bank gives them to fill out to explain who their beneficial owners are.
And, Ms. Loftus, if we can go to page 25. Ms. Wilson, what type of document is this?
This is a certificate of organization for the business for G Club.
Looking at this, where was G Club organized?
Puerto Rico.
And on what date?
October 7, 2020.
The court said, "All righty. It's now 3 p.m., so our work has come to an end for the day. Members of the jury, remember that you're not allowed to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't permit anyone to discuss the case in your presence. Don't read, watch, or listen to anything from any source about anything having to do with the subject matter of this trial. Have a good evening. I'll see you ready to come into the courtroom tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you."
The law clerk said, "Jury exiting."
Jury not present.
The court said, "You may step out. Don't discuss your testimony."
Witness temporarily excused. Continued on next page. Jury not present.
The court said, "Please be seated. Who do we expect to testify tomorrow?"
Ms. Murray said, "So we'll be continuing with Ms. Wilson and then we will have Sam Roberts, who is a BitGo employee that we discussed earlier. And then Bo Collins. And with respect to Mr. Collins, we don't anticipate that we will get past his direct examination tomorrow. But with respect to the issue we had flagged this morning on the documents, we've spoken with defense counsel. And our proposal, if it's acceptable to the court, in the very unlikely event that we did complete his direct examination tomorrow, we would request to then adjourn for the day to give the defense the benefit of the weekend to prepare his cross. Again, I think it's extremely unlikely that will be the timeline. I suspect he will still be on direct when the day ends."
The court said, "Anything else?"
Ms. Murray said, "Nothing from the government."
The court said, "All righty. Thank you. Please have the witness on the stand at 9:29 tomorrow. Have a good evening."
Adjourned to June 14, 2024 at 9 a.m.